Greetings, BlazeLeeDragon, and I want to talk to you about interpretation. Now, when it comes down to interpreting things, individuals will have different resources available to them, and this applies to everything from any form of creative self-expression to personal paths and philosophy. This can apply to religion and spirituality. This can apply to martial arts or combative skills or sports. This can apply to art and ways of presenting art, be it music or drawing or computer animated design or writing. You know, there are so many different types out there of different paths and skills and abilities and beliefs and paths and things to walk that, excuse me, your personal interpretation does not make it crap or garbage. And the reason that this is brought up is I've had several conversations and read several things online and speaking with other individuals that have brought up as far as martial arts are concerned, as far as religion or spirituality is concerned, and even so much as far as music is concerned, or other forms of art, that an individual will throw a huge hissy fit based upon an individual's interpretation of said practice. One of the not even primary, just one of any of the things that if an individual belongs to an organization that is practicing a particular style and you don't fall into that, they throw this big hissy fit. So let me give you some examples. Poetry. In college, they teach poetry. So for an individual who simply throws a couple words together in rhyme and does what they believe poetry is to them, other individuals who go to college might look at that poetry and say, well, that's garbage, that's not true poetry. This is an old conversation I had a long time ago. I actually write poetry myself, or my interpretation of poetry. And this college student looked at it, and even though she liked it, according to what she was being taught in her writing class, it was actually absolute garbage. I'd get an F for it in her class. So, is that to say my poetry is awful? Or some of you who are viewers that might write poetry on your own that don't do classical training in poetry, but just write from the heart? No, in my personal opinion, it does not. And I don't think you should live up to the expectations of others. You can still call it poetry. You know, some people will like it, some people will not like it. So, anyway. Going on, then there is interpretations of things such as religious and spirituality. I've had a lot of conversations recently about Taoism. Now, of course, I've got a video out there of Tao, and I kind of summed up some of the things that I personally believe, and I'm kind of under the impression that there's two different types of Taoism in my personal opinion. There is the philosophical Taoist who takes the principles of Tao and tries to apply it to their daily life. And then there's the religious Taoist who actually follows the religion, and I believe in most cases most of them are priests. I'm sure that there are some that just follow Taoism but do it religiously, and then of course there are some that actually practice as practicing priests. The issue I have here is quite a few individuals have seen what many Americans interpret as the Tao and Taoism, and they've actually posted online on forums and stuff saying it's absolute garbage, it's not the real Taoism, and it's just this one person posted it being this like hippie kind of thing that's just, you know, new age spiritual garbage where they kind of want to believe what they want, throw it under the term of Tao. And then of course, you know, you have your individuals who say that there's only one way of practicing Taoism, but then you start getting debates among the different factions depending on what their heritage is. You know, if they're Dragon Gate lineage, or if they're Longmen lineage, or just any of the Taoist sects out there, they're going to practice slightly differently from the other ones. I even talked to an individual who's here on YouTube that practices a particular form of Taoism, and he specifically told me that all other forms of Taoism are evil and corrupt, and that his version is the only pure version of Taoism. And just looking at all of this, in my personal interpretation, piss on them all. What you feel, and this doesn't just apply to Taoism, I'm just once again relating personal experiences. What you personally feel and interpret Taoism being, that is what it can be to you. I mean, the same thing applies to like Christianity. You'll have different versions of what people believe God is, or how they pray, or how they worship. When you are believing in something, it is your personal interpretation and belief of that system. So if you're inspired, that makes you feel more alive or more real, or just brings more into you, or just brings out more from you, helps you self-express, then go and follow that path. Be it Wicca or Taoism or Druidry or Catholicism, Protestantism, Mormonism. I mean, whatever that path may be, if you are finding interpretation and meaning in it, I personally say go for it. Once again, this is your personal beliefs. It doesn't have to be validated by other individuals. When I hear these individuals saying, oh, yeah, it's yuppie New Age stuff that some of the Americans do with Taoism and stuff like that. The thing is, the original creators of Taoism, however old it might be, whether it's 6,000 years old or only a few hundred years old, there are debates. Some say Lao Tzu, you watch my other video, some say Lao Tzu that, created it. Others say it's longer back before that. Regardless of its original origin, once it's been passed on, you start getting people's interpretations. And that happens with anything. So if you feel inspiration by reading a few words and a few comments, just because you're not following the strict scriptures of a particular path, doesn't mean it's invalid. Even if you were trained traditionally in a particular path, you're still going to find your own interpretation and meaning in that. Now, you'll notice me in many of my videos saying about the whole title thing and tossing it out. This is why. Because once you start claiming titles, you have other individuals who claim the same title, and then you start butting heads. That, and I personally don't like to stick with just one path. I like to take a little of this and a little of that. And that's not for everyone, which is fine. I respect those individuals that follow their straight path. Even that one individual with Taoism who specifically said that his path was the only pure one. I can respect him for believing that. I'm not going to agree with him, but I can respect that. Martial arts. I've had quite a few, several conversations on martial arts. There's actually a really nice forum that I've been on lately. Very, very nice guys, but we don't see eye to eye on it. And I've talked to several individuals in person and online about martial arts, and some of the guys that I even practice with at my school. And everyone seems to have their own interpretation of what martial arts is. What's the purpose behind practicing it? What makes an effective martial arts? There are arguments as far as origin stories of where martial arts come from and what technique is good versus what technique is bad. What's best in a self-defense street fight? What's best for protecting yourself, getting in shape? What makes what valid? And of course, there's the sporty approach. You have some of these sports out there, such as boxing and kickboxing and judo and karate. And they're practiced as sports here in America. They have rules and regulations, and there's all these restrictions and stuff like that. And even though a lot of these can be brought to the street as being very applicable and very strong, and of course then there's a huge debate over soft arts versus hard arts, whether you're striking and hitting the person or using their momentum and throwing them. There's all these different types of debates as far as martial arts and what way you have to practice. And one of the particular conversations I was having had to do with the Chinese martial arts, and some people brought up some fairly valid points as far as where you're generating the energy from. Where's the power coming from your technique? And you'll see online, particularly like Tai Chi Chuan, one of my preferred styles, that if you look at the way one person practices Yang style 24 Peking, and you look at another individual practice it and another individual, you can see variations. Now, under one school and one guidance, you'll see all these people practicing it very similar looking, and it's very much the same. And then you'll see the next group do it completely different, but they'll all do it the same. So then there's the interpretation of what's more real, more authentic. And at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, it comes down to the way your body moves and what feels right to your body. There are principles behind the techniques that once you have them down, I think that most people will be able to see it, but more than that, you'll be able to feel it if you're sparring or pushing hands with the person. And this just doesn't just apply to Tai Chi. This applies to all of the arts anybody does. And one of the other conversations I had is, once again, a very valid one, is practicing different styles of martial arts. You know, at my particular school, which I'm not going to name the name of just for the simple fact that my interpretation and what I learned there does not necessarily fit with what everyone that practices there. So I don't want to lump them in. Once again, different people have different interpretations. But at the particular school, we practice a variety of different styles. And it was mentioned on this particular forum that the individuals felt that if you practice different styles, then you're not getting the fundamentals of the single style, therefore you're not doing that style anymore. You're doing this other thing, which then loses its value. However, I feel that many of the arts fall into each other, and you can use some of the principles universally. Very similar to what I was talking about with the spirituality, like when you're practicing Tai Chi Chuan. You know, if you're practicing it and you're learning the push and pull movements and sinking your weight, and how to rotate from the waist, and how to generate the power from your feet, bring it up and direct it with your waist and push it up, you know, all the movements, you can apply those and use the principles such as in Pakwa or Bagua Zan. You know, you can use the circular movements with Tai Chi and Tai Chi with the Bagua. You know, once again, you know, when you're doing these waist and rotations and moves, let's say you fall off balance and you lose where you're sinking yourself and you're grounded, you can spin that straight into Bagua. And, you know, and you're spinning around with Bagua and you sink down and drop your weight, you can sink right back into Tai Chi. They can complement each other. Or when you're talking about the different styles, you know, Yang versus Chen. You know, if you learn Chen and you use the Hua Jing of Chen in your Yang's practice, they complement each other. Now, of course, not everybody shares this belief, but once again, if you're practicing a martial art and you feel alive and you feel good doing it, and let's say you can't practice the style you want to, ninjutsu, it's very, very, very popular. Everyone loves the ninja. They see all this stuff on TV. You know, technically, a lot of stuff on TV that you see is not accurate to what an actual shinobi is. Shinobi being the actual term, ninja being the one, or ninja being the one that we know here in America just because it's been more popularized, but shinobi is the actual original name of that. And these shinobi had this very, very, very deadly art, and each of the clans practiced it slightly differently. What we practice today is a lot different. And what an individual sees on TV, the whole black uniform versus wearing normal street clothes and blending with surrounding and looking like a normal person, very different mentalities. And there will be arguments among those who practice ninjutsu of what's authentic and what's not authentic, what's good and what's not good. Well, if you can't go and learn from one of the clans that is still alive today in Japan, which even then they debate on its authenticity, and you're learning from a guy down the street, or you're just watching a video and mimicking movements, of course a lot of people are going to say, well, you're just watching a video, it's not good and authentic. But once again, if you're moving and you're learning something and you're adapting principles, it's about what you were getting out of it, not what everyone else is getting out of it. And same thing applies to music. Now, I am by no means a musician. However, we had a very interesting debate where an individual had made a comment that said that her opinion was more valid because she's been classically trained in music compared to someone else who's not been classically trained in music, simply speaking about something they like versus don't like, just because she was classically trained. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion and can judge for themselves what they like or do not like. I see so many people that are focusing so much on the opinions and views of other individuals and living their life based upon that. Let's step back from that for a moment and remember, you are you. The validity of your life and the quality of your life is all based upon your attitude and perception, what you choose to perceive and the way that you choose to do it. So do not live in the shadows of other individuals. Do the best you can with the resources that you have available to you. Everybody has a valid point in an argument to a certain degree. Even if you don't agree with it or see it, I think it is very possible for individuals to come together and to discuss things freely and openly, getting their points across, learning and adapting together. without people jumping down each other's throats and passing judgment. Follow your heart. Follow your instincts. Live a happy life. So, this is BlazeLeeDragon, just a few words on feeling, developing, and realizing yourself, and not being so concerned with the opinions of others. Hopefully, this can at least make your day a little bit more pleasant.